Hello there, welcome back to the Crusader States Abridged. Last time we made two key captures. We took Aleppo and Damascus, which finally unified our Crusader states. We had a slightly dodgy campaign in the northwest to take a random rebel castle, but it worked out okay in the end. The main thing that happened though was that the Fatmid Caliphate in Egypt declared war on us, so now we're going to have to deal with this mess. As mentioned previously, our biggest weakness is that we can't really recruit troops, so we're going to be fighting this war with the guys left over from what we had at the start of the campaign for the most part. Most of those guys are in Jerusalem right now, and outside the gates there happens to be a Fatimid army. I decided to just get on with this and charge out and attack them, because that's probably going to be better than letting them siege me out here. We have a small advantage, not that good really, but looking at their army composition, they've got plenty of skirmishers, archers, light infantry and light spears, all things which can be run down by heavy cav, of which we have quite a lot. Therefore, my strategy was just to send the heavy cav out to charge them right at the start of the fight. And this is largely successful. We slam into the enemy's right flank and a bit into the centre where the spears are, managing not to take any losses and push a few enemy units back, so that's all looking good. The infantry are gradually following behind to join the fight. Going to take the cav out of the fight with the spears to replace with my own spearmen, and then we'll go in from behind. I've mentioned before that heavy cav generally don't have any specific weaknesses, maybe pikes in the pike wall formation or something, but broadly speaking you can just do anything with them and charge through the enemy. And obviously in this battle it's working out just fine. We're slamming the enemy from the front and then soon from the back as well. That's going to be the end of them. They did have loads of archers and javelineers though, so it took a while to hunt them all down and gradually rout the army, because a lot of them were only running away because they're on skirmish mode and are just stuck permanently running away. So we eventually chase them down. We also need to get the 85% mark as well to destroy the entire army after the fight. And here is the result of all that. A resounding victory. We totally destroyed their army and lost basically nobody. And that's perfect, because we can't afford to lose troops right now because they're not coming back. So that's exactly how we wanted that battle to go. Now I'm going to press on with a bit of momentum here and make a fort near the castle at Gaza, because if we can take that castle and make the fight be there, the castle's defences should multiply our army's force and allow us to sustain a longer war with only a few troops. However, here we are at the start of the next turn, and it's becoming immediately evident it's not going to work. Gaza has doubled its garrison, reinforcements are on the way, including generals, and I'm thinking, oh dear, we're actually severely outnumbered, we still can't recruit, and we're probably going to lose this war extremely soon. Thinking that, I thought let's try to get a ceasefire. However, after a long negotiation and offering them all sorts of things, they were not interested. So instead I thought, can we get the Pope to help us out? The Pope really likes us, and there's a button there allowing you to ask the Pope to start a crusade. We're going to keep that in mind now that I've discovered it and attend to a few other things in the meantime. First, I wanted to move my army back to Jerusalem and just defend the walls there as our front line. The problem though is that there was actually another Fatimid army hidden in the trees just outside Jerusalem, and they tried to ambush us on the way back. Luckily the ambush fails, so we end up with a regular battle, but more importantly, their army is again just a ton of light infantry trash. So all we need to do is order our men to attack, and that's going to be pretty much the end of the fight. Obviously we can surround them with our cav and hit them from all sides. And now we just wait for the enemy to die. Because they don't have a general, these small units are really easy to rout, so many of them are just routing right away. And bang, the fight's over just as it begins. We do need to continue to get that 85% of course and get rid of the whole army. Eventually we end up with this result. So again, another of these victories, which is the only type of victory we can accept in this war. This is going pretty well so far, but now that the Fatimids have some men on the front line, this may not last long. My strategy now then is to start building the recruitment buildings as quickly as possible and try to hold out for a few turns while we get the ability to field an army, and if we're still alive then we'll do so and counterattack the Fatimids. To finish up that whole thing from last time with the rebels in the northwest, we eventually auto-resolved the one unit in their castle and took it with basically nothing left alive in the army we have there. So we can't do anything else, but there's nothing else to do by the looks of things. We're now bordering the Seljuks. Interestingly, the Byzantines have an army in Seljuk territory. Highly suspicious. They're not actually at war with each other, but it seems like something is brewing there. They are both our allies, remember, so we want them to not be at war, preferably. Now, back to this Crusade thing. It was time to try and use this to give myself a bit of a distraction, really. I thought, where can I get the other European powers to Crusade to get the heat off me and stop the Fatimids going for a steamroll strategy? I eventually went for Alexandria, basically thinking, well, it's over there. We'll see if the enemy send men in that direction instead. A nice man comes along and tells us that while Christianity is very peaceful, of course, we're going to kill them all. So let's do it. And now the Crusade is on, we have the opportunity to join it ourselves, and so will any other Catholic nation, and they might send troops to help us. That's the hope. I haven't really played vanilla Medieval 2 Total War, so I didn't know how the Crusades worked, but I was hoping this would help out in some way, and I guess we'll just see if it does. In the meantime, let's sit here and see what the enemy do. They've got various units that they move to attack. Kerak seems to be their target, which is good because it's not Jerusalem, it's much less valuable to us, and while the garrison inside is too small to hold it, it's a handy distraction because they're sending loads of guys over there with this extremely slow animation for setting up the siege. What you'll see is that most of the troops who are in Gaza go over towards that siege at Kerak. So that means Gaza, which is a much more valuable place for us, is now less defended. Highly interesting. We've got various bits of news to hack through at the start of the next turn. All the confirmations that this crusade is happening are there, including a mission for us to join the crusade ourselves. Not too important right now for us. We also completed a mission for the Pope. I think it was to build a church somewhere, and now we have maximum relations with the Papal States. We are truly on board with the Pope. We are doing his work out here after all. And looking at this diplomatic information, there's all sorts of stuff going on, but the various things that include the Fatimids are evidence that the crusade is happening. Lots of other powers have now declared war on the Fatimids, and here is the confirmation. The crusade grows, these people have joined the crusade. So eventually, someone is going to show up, in theory, to help us. Still, we're going to have to hold out for an unknown amount of time until then. Kerak is in trouble, it's very outnumbered, but as I said, I was more interested in Gaza. What I thought I would do at first is send a little strike team of trash to just go and really cheekily take it so that we have the inside under control. It's only defended now by one unit, so I thought, well, I'll send a general with a couple of units of trash, maybe that will be enough to take it. I'm not sending very much because I wanted to still have my army ready to fight this turn. What we could potentially do is go to Kerak now and try and defeat their force over there to relieve the siege and win on both fronts. However, after looking at the situation a bit more, I realised the Fatimids have quite a few pieces in play, and there isn't really a good move for us that involves splitting up our army. The enemy can easily reinforce Gaza, and then the rubbish army I have there would be defeated, and that whole thing will have come to nothing. So I need to either commit to the Gaza attack, or not make it at all and commit to saving Kerak, leaving just a few troops to defend Jerusalem for now. Because I've already started the Gaza attack, it's going to have to be that. So we're keeping our forces unified so that we have all of our strength together. That gives us much more than we need at Gaza, and means Kerak will be screwed if the enemy just attack. But as I said, I'm willing to make the trade here. I think Gaza's the better castle to hold. Also, for no reason I decided to throw this army into the Crusade. Well, the reason was I don't know how the Crusade mechanic works, and didn't realise that this will very soon become really annoying because Crusading armies are different to normal armies. We'll talk about that as it comes up. Also, some good news from the home front. My two terrible castles in the north are now ready to upgrade to regular castles, so then I can build the recruitment buildings there and get some basic troops out on the northern front just in case anything happens, or if nothing happens we'll send them down to the south. Now let's take a look at that all-important Fatmid turn. Well, hello, suddenly they're over here. It didn't show the enemy moving, but a whole bunch of guys have appeared at Gaza and they are going to challenge our siege. So looks like this is it. The decisive battle will be right now and the enemy do have the advantage. They also have some actual units in their army, which is a shame. It's not all trash. The Arab infantry is their standard non-trash unit, I guess. It's got some defensive stats, so we can't just run through them with heavy cav as easily as we could do with like levied spears or archers or something. Anyway, the main feature of this battle is that the enemy are coming at us in two armies for the most part. So that means while we have a disadvantage overall, we have a small advantage against each individual army. Therefore, we want to attack the enemy's first army as soon as possible, and handily they were deployed close to us, so we could just rush right at them. And I really did just rush right at them, didn't even bother going behind them with my cav, just smashed into the flank in two waves, which handily allows us to counter their counterflank with a counterflank of our own against their general on our left. Elsewhere, we're just charging right in, and our king is able to rout the enemy's trash spears in front of him and immediately start breaking through their line. We're going to win according to our advisor, however we get some bad news. Our prince, the heir to the throne, has died. It looks like he was killed by the enemy general alone fighting on the right, even though we had plenty of numbers here. That is unfortunate, I think, so we'll just carry on trying to kill their general to take revenge. The advisor claims that the battle has turned against us. That will just be because the enemy's reinforcements are all on the field now, so the balance bar is now looking pretty bad, but still, the fight we're looking at right now is alright. That enemy general loses all of his bodyguards, but he himself is still alive, which is super cheeky. I'm sending some men to try and hunt him down. Also, much of his army now is just archers, but for whatever reason we're struggling to get rid of them. I'm attacking them with cav and infantry, but they're being very cheeky and not leaving, so just need to organise that to get them out of the way, and it looks like we are going to be able to clear all of this up before the other army arrives. Here you can see the enemy's archers are still technically firing, even in melee with my heavy cav, super cheeky. Anyway, so that is now sorted. The only loose end is that pesky general who's riding off on his own. I happen to have some light infantry who chased some other unit away, so I'm going to order them to try and assassinate that general before he goes. But it's just not that easy. Here we are a moment later, I'm just clearing up some trash and reforming my men, and then I noticed my Sudanese tribesmen are just dying en masse, and that's just because that enemy general is cutting his way through. It's not going very well. Generals are particularly strong in this game because after all they are heavy cav, but even better, so a full unit of infantry isn't really enough to bring them down. We need to get out of there though, because you can see the enemy's next army is here, and the balance bar is still in the enemy's favour. So we lost enough men destroying the first army that we haven't really gained an advantage over the second one, which is a shame. I'm forming up this really rough formation, very hastily made to receive them. I'm going to try and make that look a bit better. And back to that enemy general situation, I sent one of my own generals to try and take him down, while the Sudanese infantry just fight with some of the enemy's newly arrived spears. A nice losing battle, but we do finally kill that general, so we've exchanged generals in this fight. That's something, although we lost a prince, so perhaps we're still on the back foot in terms of nobility. We can though send the general who just made the kill to go and save the Sudanese infantry. The advisor now claims that only God or a military genius can save us from this dire battle situation. Well, luckily you've got both in the form of Devon, so let's see what we can do. First, as I said, we're going to try and save the Sudanese by attacking the enemy's spears from behind. But at the same time, the enemy have another general who has just slammed into the front of our line and is killing tons of our dismounted knights. A very cheeky charge from the enemy that I didn't even see happen. However, that general came out on his own ahead of the army, so we are going to be able to really easily surround him there and stop him from escaping. I just about noticed this before it was too late. The enemy were about to surround the general who is out with the Sudanese, but we can just super cheekily walk through the enemy spearmen to get onto the other side of them, and there we go, we avoided being surrounded. That worked out surprisingly well. So yes, now I'm going to send most of my men to block the enemy army that's currently approaching, while a whole load will go just after that enemy general who is now kind of trapped on our side of the battlefield. We'll hit him with our own king who has tons of heavy cav with him, and hopefully that will sort things out. I still need to keep microing the situation with my one officer and the Sudanese at the back here, but it looks like the enemy units are now moving to join the fight, so we can rear attack them with those units, and they're actually going to be very handy sitting there in the enemy's back lines. The main fight is starting, and in some cases we'll have an advantage. Some of our units are better than theirs, but we're also going to be very tired. I think the enemy might have ran towards us, so they're probably tired as well, so maybe it's not that much of a disadvantage. Really just waiting on that enemy general to go. That will free up tons of our units and demoralize the enemy. But as usual, generals take a while to kill, so while we've got him totally surrounded and pounded, it's going to be a little bit of a wait. Eventually, with our advisor telling me that something needs to happen because defeat seems almost certain, something does happen. We finally get that general kill. So now, the enemy will be demoralized and we have some freed up heavy cav to send behind their lines. About now, things start to change and that balance bar is starting to even out. Some of the enemy's frontline units are now routing. Other units have been kited to the guys we have behind their army and just aren't participating in the fight as a result. And as we surge forwards against the enemy's routing units, the ones that aren't routing will be easier to surround. At this stage, it's just a matter of micro, and bang, the battle is swinging in our favour. The advisor has changed his tune. He's having a very dramatic day today. If he didn't have bipolar disorder already, he has it now. This has been a very stressful battle. But yes, as enemy units rout one by one, victory becomes guaranteed because we can just chase down the rest with all of our remaining heavy cav, etc. And bang! If we continue like this, we will smash the enemy. So I did continue like this for a while. And the enemy were smashed. We do need to go for the full rout chase so that we can really capitalize on this win because we don't have the magic number. And as I mentioned before, when there are multiple armies on the field, you want to go above the 85% enemies killed because you don't know how much you've got from each army. Eventually, here is our result. We lost like a third of our force in total, and a prince, but the enemy lost absolutely everything. This has been quite a big victory for us, because now the enemy's vanguard force that was on the front lines is crippled, and we're only almost crippled. The enemy also reject the ransom, meaning the many prisoners we took get executed, further weakening their force. So yes, everything that was there is now gone. That was also a siege draw-out for Gaza, so the garrison inside is dead. And there, dropping dead, is our prince at the side of our army. Now I thought I'd immediately take the settlement, but apparently the Fatmids have something else to say. They start bringing men over to Gaza again, and I was like, are you serious? We're just going to do this again? But with fewer troops. The siege at Karak is ended, so that worked out quite well. But they don't make an attack this turn, and then in the Kingdom of Scotland's turn, for some reason, we cheekily take Gaza. The game remembered about that. So there we go, we're on the inside of the castle, and Karak has been saved. This somehow worked out perfectly. We did lose a prince, but here's another one. Our king has the opportunity to adopt some guy, so there we go, we'll just bring him in and immediately our prince has been replaced. We're all good now. The Pope wants us to build a church. He keeps asking me to build churches, which is annoying because I want to build military things, but I'm doing it anyway because I'm being nice to the Pope. Here's our family tree, by the way. It used to be just 2 people alive. Now we've got quite a few people alive, so it'll have to be a pretty big military disaster for us to technically lose the campaign due to the family being wiped out. We have to lose a lot of commanders. That means we're probably safe for now. Let's get back to matters of diplomacy. While that fight had been going on, I've been sending a diplomat over to the Seljuks because what I thought would be a very nice power play would be to get them to declare war on the Fatimids. Unfortunately, they were not at all interested, even with lavish bribes, so we couldn't get that going. But if that had worked, that would have been very useful for us indeed, and strengthened our alliance. Instead, the diplomat will come back, ready to try and renegotiate peace with the Fatimids. We're making a lot of money, as we just saw there, but as you can see in general, we still can't make any units, so this money isn't very useful to us. Handily, Gaza, which we just took, has the ability to recruit some trash, so it will do that. It comes with 1 recruitment building and the ability to unlock more, so we'll get on that, and soon we'll have a few more units coming into play. One thing I have been able to do is make a small fleet using our money. So we're now going to dominate the water. The Fatimids had ships all over the place and they were blockading our ports, but we're going to reverse that. We take out their fleets and we're going to blockade their main port at Alexandria so they can't trade. This in theory weakens the AI because they'll have less money, but also they can just cheat whenever they need money because it's on above normal difficulty, meaning I don't know if this actually has any effect. Now back to Gaza. Those guys who came over and threatened to attack us a second time are still standing there, and I thought we might as well sally out of the castle and kill them now, because they're all separated. It's 3 separate armies, meaning we can get some easy battles. The 2 I'm facing right now are in reinforcement range of each other, but our guy knows Night Attack, so we can get rid of one of them. I was considering not doing this because Night Attack is so annoying to play from a meta perspective, but by spamming the Highlight Units button, we can get a rough idea of what's happening, and what's happening is the enemy are just being annihilated. Their general died in the first microsecond of the fight, and now the units are routing after a very short engagement and will just destroy them. That's one army down then. Something interesting did happen though. They've got a unit of horse archers who I had to start chasing towards the edge of the map, but the AI did something clever. They actually just withdrew them from the fight rather than forcing them to rout. And this reminds me that the Medieval 2 and the Rome 1, I think, AI is able to withdraw, which the AIs in later Total Wars can't do. One of their critical flaws. They can't leave a battle that's unwinnable and try to withdraw in good order. So yes, they've done it there, they've saved a unit. I thought I might be able to get to the 85% magic number just killing everything else. I'm not sure I actually did. Doesn't matter because they did accept the ransom afterwards, so some of those guys went back to safety somewhere. Although apparently this worsens my relations. I guess they wanted them back for free. We're being too money grubbing. Whatever. We go on to the second battle. This time though, the commander of one of the armies, I guess, has the Night Attack ability, so I can't make a Night Attack. They're still going to arrive. Meaning we have to fight all of these guys at once. Plus, it's actually the enemy's faction heir, the enemy prince if you will. So this was a nice chance for us to take revenge on the Fatimids for the death of our prince recently, but this turned into quite the battle, so I'll talk about that at the start of the next part.